Manchester by the Sea, select board to order. Jeff?
Yeah.
Kathy?
Yes.
And here, and John.
Is here.
And Brian is not here and will not be here. The first item is public comments on non-agenda items. Are there any public comments on non-agenda items in the room? Are there is there anyone?
I would like to, if I may,
Yes.
I'd like to thank Brian in absenteeism for helping us on Saturday morning. The house on the corner of school
Mhm.
that was taking the siding, the facade down, did not have a test report on whether there was asphalt or not. We had asked them for it several times. They didn't have it. We closed the project down Friday afternoon, said you can't do it until you have the test results. And they continued to work on it Saturday, and Brian saw them and convinced them that they should
Mhm.
get the test report. And they said, well, rather than that, we'll just assume there's asbestos there and we will take the necessary precautions. So I'd like to acknowledge publicly his assistance there.
That's Peter Colarusso, and
I'm sorry.
we probably give us your address too, just.
4 Rockwood Heights Road.
Is there anyone online?
Not seeing any hands.
Okay. I have no chairman's report. Is there anything that should be on the action item?
The only thing I can think of is we did say after town meeting, at some point, we would be looking at the short-term rental bylaw. Still, I think says 6 days, and kind of went back and forth and said we can wait on that, but I just think it should be on the list so we don't forget about it.
And there was some discussion about trimming the friendship tree. I don't know whether we should throw this into the trees category. That was supposed to be done sometime between, well, I guess now and next December, and I'm not sure what the time of year is, but we should at least have a checkpoint, I think, for that, make sure that that happens.
Right. Or perhaps we should just let the DPW know that it's important now. And
Okay,
we can
whatever.
We can check again in late June.
We need a little tickler
Yeah.
somehow.
I'm not sure whether this belongs on the select board or could be handled some other way, but I think we need to work a little bit on flag flying protocol. The new pole isn't tall enough for a flag at half staff and for 2 flags at half staff. I think and I'd also like to see that there's somebody in town who's responsible for that pole and is actually going to do it. And I would recommend that we put town flags in the purview of the fire department. They seem to be good at it.
Okay.
We should talk about that generally.
Okay.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is a joint meeting with the Board of Health. Greg, could you launch that?
Sure. So the MOU that was crafted between the two bodies a little while ago called for regular updates, and we haven't been real faithful to that, so it's time to do that. So the 2 main topics tonight really are to hear an update on activities that the board has underway. I think Wendy provided a memo or a summary of those activities in your packet, and she can summarize those for us this evening. And then for the main topic of tonight, there is a proposal to reestablish and expand a transfer station in Gloucester on Cumberland Road, part of the industrial park there. And it's to accept construction debris, demolition and debris. And the city Board of Health is about to have a hearing starting Wednesday night, I believe it is. And then that would be for determining participants, and then the following, I think it's the following week, the actual hearing. So we should talk a little bit about that project and whether or not you have concerns that you would like to brought forth to the city Board of Health as part of their hearing process. So with that, I think, Wendy, if you want to start and give some overviews.
It might be easier, I know, just to actually start with the Conlin Road. You gave us sort of a good summary. I didn't know if anybody else got a chance to review some of the information that had been forwarded to you folks. It is a site assignment for construction and debris waste transfer facility. There is an existing facility out there that handles recyclable materials, as well as they have an existing disposal business. So they are proposing to operate up to 270 tons per day, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. So that's kind of normal for, a business. However, it is in an area that abuts our town that's very residential or undeveloped land. So it's right up against
The wetland.
the wetlands. What I was going to say is that Magnolia Ave area has that one.
Can I just make sure for everybody in this room is aware of it, but maybe somebody is listening. There are two Magnolia Aves.
Oh, I apologize. I kind of didn't recognize
Left and
that.
right, right?
Yeah, there's the Magnolia Ave in Manchester, which doesn't actually connect to
Magnolia
Magnolia
Avenue.
Road or Magnolia Avenue in Gloucester.
Right.
So we're talking now about Magnolia Ave in Gloucester, which is quite a different place.
Okay, and I was actually talking about Magnolia Ave in Manchester, goes
Yes,
behind
because-
Condolin Road.
Mhm.
So it's up University, Big Rock
Yeah, yeah.
Road.
Yeah.
That area, there's
This is
conservation land there, a couple of there's
Mhm.
residential land up there, there's no commercial land.
Right.
Or uses currently.
and it's not zoned for it.
Right. This is all in Gloucester. All the activity that they're talking about is in Gloucester, but as an abutting within a half mile of the activity, we were notified. And after talking and reviewing, speaking with the Conservation Commission, our chair, we are petitioning to be a party. At that hearing, we're going to pretty much focus on the concerns we have about Wolf Trap Brook,
Mhm.
the wetlands that surround this proposed use is where the Wolf Trap Brook starts, collects, and it's a straight shot less than a mile down to its termination in Black Beach tidal flats.
Mhm.
It's all down gradient, topographically as well as potentially, in underground. So we're going to be asking about groundwater testing, if they have any to be proposed monitoring. There are some drinking water wells in the area. So we have concerns about that, as well as the gathering of waste materials that could be potentially hazardous, and how they're going to just ensure that those are captured and not released into the environment. As well as, we didn't see any studies of air quality, dust, traffic control, traffic exhaust, decibel levels, that kind of thing. So we are asking that they provide additional information on that, as well as concern about the traffic potential. So we are asking, they did not provide, but we are asking for their published truck route, which should indicate there's no trucks through Manchester. Traffic route should route them through, be directed off of 128 via the exit 53 in Gloucester onto 133 and then onto Condon Road. So there's some information missing as far as my review of the site the material, the application material. One of the biggest concerns I have because of that brook, Wolf Trap Brook, they did not have an environmental impact report for the site. They seem to have exceeded many of the thresholds to require one. So we're not really sure what happened between the application and it getting to the Gloucester Board of Health, but we are going to ask both the Board of Health and address the letter to the secretary at the state level and ask why NEPA, ask why they did not require the environmental impact report. So that's kind of where we're at.
The EPA, this is an EPA issue that supersedes the state.
Mhm.
And they require a storm water permit. And the permit asks the applicant to identify the potential contaminants and how they are going to plan to contain them,
Mhm.
particularly getting into the wetlands and to the brook.
Mhm.
My personal concern is not so much construction waste, because that's more or less controllable. You know what's there. It's the demolition waste, which could be God knows anything. And I don't know how they're going to be able to predict what that is. So I would personally like to see them be overly conservative in their prevention of having that blow into the
Mhm.
wetlands. But I think we should get, they have to get the EPA permit, and then we should push them to do it the right way, I think. You don't want to take this one lightly.
Martin Hahn, Board of Health. In addition to what Wendy was saying, I found it peculiar that the original volume predictions were in excess of 150 truckloads a day. And then upon criticism of that was reduced to 136. And I'm always suspicious of how they get to those numbers and who's going to control the actual volume down the road. Is it going to be 136 or 156 or 186? Because above the threshold of 150, there are many more restrictions that need to be met in order for this to be permitted than below 150. And,
Who
obviously-
counts?
Exactly, who counts?
Question I have in that regard, how many trucks are going now and where are they going?
Well, and that's one of the things that is under the traffic control question. Those counts that they provided, trips per day, were only for the large,
It's for construction disposal. But right now it's residential
right.
stuff and is that like 5 trucks or 2 trucks? I just don't know. 136 is a big number. But I don't know in the whole scheme of things whether they've got 136 going now.
Right, but 136 was container trips, really. They did
Right.
not count the smaller. It did not look like in the paperwork they provided that they counted the smaller trucks, the dump trucks, the, flat,
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
So they didn't give that number, they didn't give that information.
I'd be interested in that and to know whether those trucks were coming through Manchester or everything's going through Gloucester. I assume it's
Is
the
the
latter.
site currently active?
There is currently
Yeah.
a business there, yes. I think that they might have.
It's Hill's
It's
disposal.
Hill's
disposal.
disposal.
Hill's disposal.
They're looking to
That site.
expand an
The
active site.
cycling portion may have been closed for the winter or something, somebody
I
told
thought
me.
they had a permit violation.
Yes,
It didn't close them down?
they may have closed down at one point. They were actually purchased by an out-of-state company. Hill's Disposal didn't stop. It was a recycling center that was collecting construction and demolition debris. So they are currently active. I don't know what happened with the permit. They did have, it's not a site assignment, it was a file number permit, I believe, in response to that. So there is a history there.
Is the Gloucester Conservation Commission now active with all of this?
Yes, they are. They have sent a letter. I talked to the Board of Health Director in Gloucester this afternoon, and she said, yes, we've received a letter from the Gloucester Conservation Commission reminding the permittee that they have jurisdiction and will be requiring a notice of intent. There are several more steps after this hearing. It will, depending on what the results of the hearing are and the Gloucester Board of Health's decision, it will then go back to the state for operational permitting. So there's a lot of operational information that's not provided. And then it will go back through Gloucester permitting process for the actual site work.
Well, I know our Conservation Commission is aware.
Yes, I did speak to
I don't
this.
know if they're actively part of the communications activities here, but we should be
They've given us advice.
Yes.
upfront.
Yep,
They've
they-
given
Whenever
us
something
advice.
happens, they automatically are going to tell us
Right.
that story.
Right, and I have spoken with the chairperson. He did ask their administrator to go and find some information, which they did. So they talked to the Gloucester Conservation Commission administrator. Trying to think, he said he had a conflict for tonight, so couldn't come, but I did recommend that they address an individual letter to the Board of Health, but I also took notes on our conversation. He had some of the similar concerns as I did around wolf trap.
They're plugged in,
Yes, they are.
they'll respond appropriately.
Yes, the time frame is really tight, unfortunately. We have known about this for a while. Nobody really picked up on it 2 years ago when it first came through. There's been several revisions that were received in Gloucester. But we didn't really pick it up until we were notified about the hearing 2 weeks ago. So a lot of activity in the last 2 weeks just to catch up and understand where we are. So we need to notify the hearing officer by tomorrow afternoon of our intent and provide whatever documentation we intend to submit as evidence.
And by applying, we will have more influence. I don't know what their position is, whether they would like to see it go ahead or not, independent of our opinion. But once we're registered, they have to at least take it into consideration.
So I see probably your biggest line of defense here is the stormwater, the catch basins with the well separators. Whose job is it going to be to inspect those on a regular basis? Because I have a little bit of experience here, and these things get installed and then they get forgotten about until there's a problem.
Right.
So is that going to be Gloucester's job, or what's
So
gonna
it
happen?
is within Gloucester's purview to ensure that it gets done. The oversight of the monitoring ultimately falls both with the local Board of Health and with the state DEP. Of course, there is that EPA portion of it, but they generally don't send anybody out. This is one of the questions when I spoke to the director this afternoon. The question of how are they going to ensure long-term compliance and monitoring is going to be part of their decision making. So I definitely want to see monitoring long-term. So, and get copies of that for us, particularly because of our drinking water wells out there. There's at least 6, maybe 7 or 8 out there that we know about.
I mean,
I think that gives us some leverage to push the issue with Gloucester. I mean, we can't go to Gloucester and say, hey,
Right.
we're
Well, it would be-
trespassing. But,
But it would be nice to have some kind of update down the road as to,
oh, yeah.
Yes, and that's what one of my requests will be, is that they provide monitoring, which did not see in the application itself. And with that, it would be a public record, therefore we could ask for those records.
yeah, that would be good.
It would be nice to have us be an automatic, like a CC line on some of their reporting would be great. But we'll see how
See how that goes.
willing they are to do that.
Okay, great.
I guess my only question is there anything specific that you need from us? It seems like you're, talking with all the right committees, and I appreciate the awareness and the details. Is there anything specifically that we can help with?
At this point, no. Glad that we were able to pull ourselves together and get comments to them. That's what I'm in the process of doing. So hopefully, the next time I talk to you about it, we will have more information, about what they're going to do.
And hopefully it'll be good information.
Yes.
Yes. Other comments or questions? Okay, now could we go back to the first topic,
Sure.
which is what are you doing? What should we know about?
Doing so many things.
Can I offer you a thought on that?
Yes.
For us to predict the next 3 months is going to happen, next quarter, is very difficult. We are bound by law to respond to Title V requests within 45 days. We don't know when they're coming. They come in waves. And we've had a lot of housing complaints this year. 4, Wendy? 5? 5 housing complaints in 3 months, which take an ungodly amount of time, and they're not predictable. And why they take so much time is there's 2 types of complaints: the people that don't feel they need to comply, and the people that have no idea that they're not complying. Both take a lot of education. Unfortunately, we've had to take one case to court because they refused to comply. So to be able to predict all that is
I just wondered if you had any initiatives that you were working on.
we've been working on bringing Title V up to date for over a year, and it keeps getting bumped down the road because something else comes up. So
When you say bring Title V up to date, what,
There are amendments that the state is requiring, and we're going through those in like working groups outside of our regular meetings right now, and creating framework for the update of the Title V regulations.
The addenda.
The addenda.
The addenda.
So actually, as far as initiatives, we've just completed the diaper drive. So we collected, I forget how many, the report, but it was around like 400 packages. So that was really well done of us. We are working on a community naloxone program. So we're an affiliate for reporting. Hopefully we'll be able to work with other departments as we get further in, using some of the opioid funds. We have worked with the Essex Health and Fire Departments as well as the Manchester School to organize a life safety skills training for students. Hopefully that'll happen next fall. We have a mother visiting partnership. So new mothers get a visit from our public health nurse, as well as blood pressure screenings. We are working with the Regional Youth Prevention Network, trying to get a good understanding and work with them on some local programming for students in addition to the life safety skills training. Welcome to spring. We're doing all of our seasonal openings and, we've done our first round of food inspections. We've had a couple of turnovers. Richdale's, there's On the Grind that's just opened up at the MAC. We have another, oh my gosh, Olivo's, no, a lovely storefront that's gonna go in just around the corner there on School Street, right at the bottom of School Street.
Wine and.
Wine and food, and
Yeah,
I
that was
apologize
alcohol.
for not remembering
I
the
can't-
name of the company, storefront, but a lovely people. We're actually holding our mosquito control annual review of the, Northeast Mosquito Control is coming to our, a public hearing on May 22nd for vector, yes.
Interrupt just to suggest that when you have a public hearing, you might make sure you work with Tiffany to get the word out to those of us who use electronic media.
So my understanding is it is.
Okay.
She was notified that was happening.
That is a topic that I think a lot of people in town would be interested if they ran across it. But not everybody subscribes to the Cricket. Even those of us who subscribe to the Cricket don't always read all the legal notices.
Right, no,
so-
it should be both in the Tide and on the website, I believe.
But yeah, there's also
Where else
maybe
do we put it?
she might put it in the Manchester, what, where, when, Facebook.
Okay.
That's got about 5,000 subscribers.
So many people are reading Facebook though.
Well, yes, but
somebody to
I'm
catch
sorry,
up.
I'm not generally the one who tells Tiffany where to put it, just that
But
it's a thing, but I will ask
Yeah,
her specifically if
because
she has had a
Particularly
chance.
for the mosquito. Many of the things that you listed are not of great general interest, but mosquito prevention. And
Okay, absolutely. Same with the household hazardous waste collection event on June 14th. Which is,
that one's important, but it's all usually oversubscribed, isn't it?
It's very well subscribed, yeah.
So
oversubscribed? I don't know what that means.
what that means is
At capacity?
you run
you
out of capacity.
It's, you have a good turnout,
Yes, we do. Yes.
very good turnout, yes.
It's the hearings that I'm worrying about that affect a lot of people in town, and a lot of people in town don't follow your agendas closely enough.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll work
Just
with Tiffany to be more transparent, definitely.
And
We have,
proactive.
But sometimes
Proactive.
with plenty of notice, when we had the hearing about cigarettes, we had one person who actually lived in the town who was responsible for selling cigarettes, and no one else from the town came, but
No,
it
we had
attracted
two
a
other
lot
ones.
of people.
yeah, we had,
I frankly,
I was,
Kathy was
yeah,
there.
Kathy was there, but
Well, it was very poorly.
The mosquito people show up for that.
Mhm.
We had a full agenda at the end of last year, and we've been notified by the state that some of the funds, that grants that were coming through for that are probably not going to be coming through, or at least not at the levels that we had hoped. So there may be some changes going forward on what we're able to do.
Mhm.
Surprise, surprise, right?
Common issue from the
Hopefully they
department.
still pay for the vaccine, the flu vaccine.
I think we're really kind of hoping that the state labs stay open. But in the light of working with people, we were able to get an intern to come this year. Unfortunately, it's unpaid. The state was, the program was a paid internship, but the person agreed to work with us without being paid, or on the hope that maybe the money will come through, but, so that'll be lovely. July and August, get about 160 hours. So.
Got a question. I'm just looking at the projects that you're just kind of running down here.
Yeah.
The private well data collection, how is that going? I know that there was a regulatory update, was it maybe 2 years or so ago,
Last year, yes.
or whenever it was. and
Yeah,
at
no,
that
no, no,
point-
because I'm very aware
Okay.
we're coming up on that 1-year anniversary of it. We had asked for voluntary compliance. We had quite a few people, submit their information to us. Tiffany had worked with us to get a handout that was very clear for folks, so that was very helpful. We are putting all of the information together. It is time consuming to turn that around into usable data that we can put information and pull out, what's the average depth of well and that kind of thing, which is one of the things we had hoped to do. That is one of the things I hope the intern will be able to work on. As far as getting to a point where everybody is in compliance, that is not yet there. But we have, like I said, there's been a lot of people who have been very willing to work with us and to get that information into the Board of Health. But as far as putting it into a format that I can let loose into the town's GIS, I would hesitate to do that at this point, just because the inaccuracies are, potential inaccuracies are just not.
Just in general, how many of the wells have you heard from at this point? Regardless of whether they're in compliance or what they're doing or not doing?
How many have I heard from?
Yeah. I remember in the discussion, maybe there were 100 wells in town. or
55.
50 or 55?
Yeah.
So that's more than half.
Yeah, and that's just off the top of my head, a number.
Okay.
And that includes a couple of the new wells that we've had. Kings Way, they all have wells. Not Lawrence.
Loading place. So,
Loading places, a lot of people in Loading Place, a lot of people University Lane.
The problem is that the remainder of the wells, we don't know whether they're going.
you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And there's no mandatory
Yeah.
reporting for them at
So
this point, so.
there is an effort to go through the files to find the old well reports
Right.
if there are, and that's very slow, but we are working on
Okay.
it in our,
Just curious, I know there were a lot of wells that were
yes,
lost or not used, have been dead
Yes.
for many years.
right.
That computer program that is going to list septic and wells, and you just hit the address and it gives you the whole history, will be fantastic and
Okay.
be able to answer any question when and if it's ever loaded.
First, you gotta get the data.
You got to get the
Right,
data.
right.
That's
So
what
it's
these
coming,
people
and it
do.
sounds,
It's partially loaded
it
up.
sounds like you may be halfway there or something, I don't know.
Yeah, it's more the data behind because the program is there. We're working on making sure it is accurate is really my big issue with it. Because I don't want to release it. There's some that are listed as wells with the downwater and then vice versa. So
Okay, just curious, because I hadn't heard anything since the regulatory
Yes,
discussion.
absolutely,
I just knew that was a big unknown.
yes. It still feels like a big unknown to me, but we will get there. I am one person. I'm doing as best as I can.
Not for this year, but the seniors in high school have to do SCORM project. There's some data entry sort of thing that you could work with them next year.
Interestingly enough, I did go to the school and I did offer community service hours. Nobody has applied.
Okay, good, thank you. Sorry, the result is what it is, but
I'm, we don't pay enough.
Oh, wait a minute, what about Essex Tech? Would there be any type of internship that might be related?
Yeah, I can ask.
Doesn't hurt
Off
to
the top
ask.
of my head, I don't. Mind us.
Sure, I will absolutely take help from wherever it comes.
And congratulations on your master's.
Thank you very much. I don't know, I don't think I added it, but it turns out I got the award for student success and leadership for helping to connect an online study group. So, thanks.
Members of the board.
I just found out on Tuesday, I think. They just told me on Tuesday. I was very excited. I was kind of I got an award too.
Okay. Having our questions answered, or you have nothing?
So I would ask you to, when you have the time, read our minutes, because I think that you'll have a much better idea of not only what's going on, but the complexity and the number of revisits and revisits that are necessary. So
I mean, Becky Jakes was our representative, our liaison to you.
Well, I was actually
you were.
assigned, yeah, most recently. I talked to Wendy the other day. It's just the Thursday mornings at 8:30 are tough for me to meet. So I do wind up looking at the meeting minutes and stuff like that more than attending the meetings.
And you give us liaison reports
Right.
based on that, and so,
But it's not a bad idea, maybe a couple of times a year.
Yeah, I think it's
Something like that.
helpful,
Doesn't have to be quarterly, because I mean, I'm looking and seeing quarterly, I think that's too much, but a couple of times a year for you to come by
I think that'd be
and
helpful.
say, this is what's going on, is helpful.
Fine with me. I think the board is, it's good to have boards meet each other.
Yes.
thank you very much. Anything to say?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
thank you, Lenny.
And everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Evening, sorry.
I'm sorry, I know you work long days.
No, especially
I
long
think it's
today.
not evening until I've had dinner, and then it's evening, so. I'll go do that.
A late evening.
Representative is coming into town with the taking time.
How we doing? Right? Keep going.
Keep going.
Just keep rolling.
Greg, I don't know, did you download the presentation or should I, there's a person online that can share it if you'd rather do it that way.
Yeah, I think we should put it on the screen.
Right, do you want them to be the hosts or you can, if you want to give permission to Sean Francesco, that's one of the consultants that's online, who has the,
Got it.
otherwise, if you want to do it, that's fine too, but just whoever's easier.
No, I'll let him do it.
Yeah, size you pull it up, Chuck?
Yeah, I think Greg will give you permission to share your screen, and when we get to it, just after.
Yep, sounds good, no problem.
While we're pulling that up, I guess those drought was on the agenda as well tonight. You guys, nice rainy day, we get to talk about drought again.
I know.
Seems like that's always the
Always the case.
It's always,
Right. So I did put a little memo in the packet. Hopefully you were able to read it, but I'm not trying to belabor the point just because there was some question at town meeting, also just in general in the community. So we have a registration with DEP, very specific about the things we need to comply with. Likewise, DEP is in charge of all that. They are very specific about what need to comply with. It was definitely on purpose that the drought management plan of the state was coinciding with when they renewed the registrations and trying to basically pass down all the requirements of the drought management plan through the registrations. That was a very concerted effort. So that's, we're kind of seeing the fruits of those labors and why we're in drought and while things are happening. So that's how we got here. The update that we did on the bylaw during town meeting, that's a requirement within our registration. So that was not just hey, let's do another bylaw, or that was a requirement. So all these things have kind of been at play. We're really at the mercy of this drought management task force that is, meets the next meeting is May 7th. They're going to say whether or not we're in a drought. It's very much regional. It's not water supply or even town supply specific. There's a whole bunch of carve outs for Mass Water Works or Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, MWRA communities versus private communities, or smaller communities. So it's just a lot. So if you just want to kind of look at just Manchester, we basically have to do whatever the drought task force says, and we're supposed to enact those restrictions based on your authority as the water commissioners to restrict non-essential use. And that's where that very specific definition of non-essential use came from. These are all kind of how we got to where we are. You guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but that's what they're looking for. Every time we do enact a restriction, which is, theoretically very often now, I have to send a form to DEP that says we enacted the restriction. Every year, when we do our annual statistical report, I will tell them all the different dates that we enacted them and then lifted the restrictions. So that's just reporting requirements. I don't think at this point people are, keeping score. I think at some point people will start to keep score and they'll be upset or not if, depending on, what they think, is the
When you say
reasonable.
people, you don't mean citizens, you mean
No, I mean
regulators.
regulators, yes. So,
We need to distinguish between people and regulators.
sorry, yeah. Regulators are people too often.
When you say keep
I don't
score,
see any evidence of that.
when you say keep score, in other words, all right, we told you to have this restriction in place. How many of you guys did
Right.
that?
Yeah. So, like the critical three is, that's the strict one. Right now, we're still, believe it or not, in level 2. Wednesday, they'll meet to decide if we can go to level 1 or level 0. I mean, we're almost always in level 1 now, which is restrictive, which we've never been restrictive before. So that's, there's definitely a learning curve there. But I think we'll get that learning curve. That they're going to look at, we declared level 3 critical 3 times a year. I only see 2 corresponding bans in your town, like something like that. So, I think that's where we're at.
So when they meet in a couple of days, what's the data, the period of performance, the data that they're going to be looking at? They're not going to be taking into account the rain we're getting today, right?
Right. Well, so they surprised me actually last time. You remember, if you guys remember, you voted, and they weren't supposed to take into account. It's really supposed to be a monthly. So like right now, they would be looking back at
As of
May.
April
They'd be looking
30th?
back at April, not the last week, the first week of May. But I think last time they actually did.
Oh, good. Okay.
Because we went from 3 to 2.
Right.
And so that I think they did look at that. Although I'm not in the room, maybe they were like, oh, the stream flow in whatever stream was was higher, and therefore we're going to level 2. I mean, it's supposed to be much more scientific, but I think there's still an element of trying to not make it.
Do they meet regular scheduled times, or is it really driven by the weather?
I think it's regularly scheduled.
So it's always, whether you say Wednesday, so this is
Like
what,
a
like
week
the
after
first
the end of the
Wednesday of
month.
the
Yeah,
month?
it's the
or something?
first week of the month. In
Okay.
this case, May 7th. I think last time it was April 9th or something like that. So it's that, call it the first Wednesday of every month.
Well, okay.
Have lands on the calendar.
How is this enforced? Meaning at the town level,
So the bylaw does give us the authority to
us meaning,
the water department /
okay,
the commissioners, police, whoever, to impose fines. So that's strictly through the bylaw. Has nothing. The state will not be knocking on doors or driving down the road and
so
looking at.
we are responsible for telling people that they can't water their lawns. How nice.
Yes. Yeah.
When the state says, I'm gonna say it's now, say at level 3, they have their own publicity to say that.
Right.
So people will hear that, but they haven't heard it from us yet. But in theory, within a day or two, they're supposed to hear it from us.
And I do believe we have heard it more on the news
I see
than
it
we
on the
ever
weather
have
reports.
before.
Okay,
That's where I
alright.
see
And I
So-
think that's direct function of DCR and DP, talking to the news stations or newspapers or whatever, and that, coming to fruition that way. Certainly not from us, or, we will get calls from Gloucester Times and sometimes Erica at the Cricket, but, for the most part, asking for imposing restriction. I think Rockport was in the news recently because they are having issues with water supply. And certainly, if we are having issues with our water supply, we want to communicate that, but we really haven't.
I just,
So I did put in the end,
Hear
we,
a lot from the citizens when they discover that it's hand watering and one day a week and when we're only in a level 1 drought and there's no problem in town with the water. It's just,
I agree. And we, this has been a end game, I think, through the registration process for actually over a decade. Like they tried to do this previously and they lost in court. We actually just finished our court appeal of the Water Management Act's registration condition. So, but we did go back to court in just last month to the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts to say that DP and the state do not have the right to infringe on our registrations. Our registrations are ours to use however we so choose. But it seems like we're probably not going to win this time.
when you say we,
So many water suppliers across the state with these registrations
okay.
we all kind of joined suit and filed this appeal. We were part of that, but even if we weren't, any registration during that part.
And then the key thing for the consumer is that the state will say level 3 or level 2 or level 1.
Yeah.
And we have to, at this point, we have to say the same.
Correct. And,
But the appeal was, we'll decide what we think it should be for our particular community. And they're looking good. Okay.
So, I mean, technically, we're supposed to comply, but what have we done?
Right, so I don't think anything right now. I mean, like I said, it is up to us to enforce when you guys do enact the restrictions. So, like I said, we're typically only going to try and do educational. We're not going to, if somebody says, hey, my neighbor's watering and their sprinkler's on and it's raining out, we'll try and tell them like, hey, you should get a rain sensor. You should, only water at night. Do all these things that make a lot of sense. Save on your bill, all these types of things. But I don't think the state is going to, say, hey, we issued this level 3 restriction on April 3rd and you guys didn't enact it until May 3rd or something like that. Like, it's not going to happen that way. But I think at some point they will look at, we had 3 level 3 critical droughts. You guys didn't do any restrictions. Why is that? We'll have to have that conversation. And if it gets to be habitual and, we're non-responsive, then we could see a consent order or something like that. I don't think they'll start there.
I mean, I guess my question is, say if we have plenty of water here, but they say we're in a level 3, what's to stop us from saying, well, no, we're really in a level 1 here?
Or no. No,
Or
that-
not yet?
Nothing, unless they
Yeah,
say
so that,
something.
I think eventually it will catch up to us, but they're not going to go water supplier by water supplier right now.
Okay, you're level until you get.
So
You just gotta be prepared for the consequences.
have you issued any limits that have differed from the state so far, or have you just said nothing?
I'm not sure what you mean. What,
In other words,
you
the
guys
state
have,
says it's a level 3, and you get this statement, this is level 3, and you don't do anything. Not like, we think it's going to be a level 2 for us. And so that's,
I'm not doing anything. You guys are the ones that are voting the.
all right, yes,
yeah,
okay.
restrictions.
But you will bring to us,
Right, so I always try and tell you, and
Okay.
the way it's worked so far, and I see it working this way, even this summer, even the fall, and coming years, is when we get to level 3 critical, even if we're okay, we should be very cognizant of.
All right.
We don't want to get too far ahead of the way the supply is going, and we always have potential to be in a prolonged drought. So I don't want to minimize the fact that we could be, but looking at our historical trends, looking at the height of the reservoir, looking at our drawdown in the well, like we're fine, water supply wise. But if the state's issuing a critical level 3 critical drought, and we stay there for a month or 2 months, we don't do anything, then we do have an issue. We're going to look pretty stupid. So I'm here to make us
I
not.
don't
I
think
think
that makes us look stupid. I think that makes us look sensitive to the needs of the community.
Right, but I think we don't want to.
Defiant perhaps, but
Yeah. Well,
But we don't want to,
and I think
anticipate.
Right, we got to look at the
We
trend,
got to look.
and we
Yeah.
want to
right.
act before things get bad,
Correct.
right?
yes.
That's
I
the
think
truth.
that's also
So
true.
there may be delayed reaction, but
I
this,
don't think we're gonna unnecessarily tie people's hands when we don't need to either.
Right, but
For
that's
sure.
why you look at a trend, that information's a point in time, but you put together the trend and you want to
So
stop.
like, there's a couple other, like, the things that water suppliers were advocating for before they put this rule in place is like, they're basing this on the state drought plan. Why shouldn't we be able to have a local drought plan that we follow? So technically, right now, even if that was available to us, we do not have a Manchester drought plan. So like, maybe that's something we should do. But that's, you know, you have to do some work on it, do some engineering, some math.
So is there,
But right now, that would not count in place of the state's drought plan.
Right, yeah, I understand. Steve.
so is there some sort of a publicity initiative that's going to happen in the next month or two?
Right, so I am gonna be at a meeting next week or the week after with the DCR and the state about messaging of their drought, you know, the state declared drought. To say like, this is the problem we're having is like, look, it's been raining, our water supply's fine, there's no reason for me to tell my consumers to, you know, curb their use. So how do we square that with what you're telling us we have to do? So we'll see what they say about that, and then also the Water Management Act advisory committee to DEP. I'll be on that. So you know this was part of the Water Management Act, you know, rules and regulations. So see if they're willing to revisit it or consider other alternatives like allowing us to have our own local drought plan, stuff like that.
Well, I think consumers need to know how the process goes. We're not entirely in charge here.
And so I think that's what you mentioned at the town meeting was, you know, we'll have Tiffany do
Yeah,
some, you know, and so
It
I'm
has
working with
to.
Tiffany on, you know, how we message all this and, you know, make it consumable for the average
Okay.
person.
Oh, let's go to the good news practice.
we're not solving any
So I'm
problem.
doing the thing, I couldn't,
You are or you aren't?
oh, yeah,
Oh, okay.
You're in charge.
all right, I'll flip the switch here.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is not meant to be a very intensive presentation. We have done a lot of work over the last year. Last week at town meeting, voters approved to, you know, take it the next step, which will be design, so we thought it was worthwhile. This was in the works for a while anyway, to talk to you guys about kind of the siting of DPW up at School Street. Greg, if you want to go forward. So this is, you know, this is more of an engineering analysis, but, you know, previously we had done a siting analysis as well as the facility master plan, which talked about, you know, the pros and cons, moving DPW. This is just kind of a vicinity plan showing, you know, the kind of clouded area up there at School Street where we, you know, what we're looking at. The circles are kind of all the different areas around town where DPW has a footprint, whether it's just cold storage like at Home Station or the wastewater treatment plant where we have a lot of other materials, or even, you know, Town Hall where, you know, the administrative staff is. So that, you know, this is just what we're trying to show here, get everybody kind of acclimated. Greg, you can go to the next one. So, you know, part of the work that we've done to date as part of this kind of agreement with Tetra Tech, who's here tonight, is to do survey, to do borings, geothermal evaluation, solar evaluation, just kind of get a sense for the overall needs and requirements of the site as well as the facility. So that's, it might be hard for you guys to see back there actually, but you know, we actually did 2 rounds of borings, one for kind of the site where the previous compost was, and then another round where we looked at if we were to do what we're calling a kind of a campus where public safety was also located up at the site, kind of that lower intersection of Atwater and School. You know, how are those soils and, you know, potential, you know, building considerations there. So that's what you're looking at here. Greg, you can go to the next slide.
Are you thinking about geothermal?
We are, yep. So, you know,
Ground source.
ground
So,
source, heat
You know,
pump.
geothermal and ground source can get interchanged, but yeah, ground source, like CST.
So, you know, as part of that, what we're calling, you know, what you're looking at here is kind of proof of concept for just the DPW facility. So this was the overall intent of this engagement, was to, you know, really look at this, and there's a lot of needs and wants in the facility master plan and the siting analysis, making sure that, you know, this site can accommodate that. You know, kind of the what your footprint you're looking at here is kind of the already cleared and leveled site. I mean, there is definitely tiers to the site, but, you know, buildable kind of area that already exists. We also looked at circulation, different analysis on, you know, being able to move around the site, whether it's, you know, our operations, but also the deliveries or town residents that come up for certain things, that's the thing. We also have emergency egress out onto Cape Glass, so it's not just up a steep hill into a site, it's, being able to get out the backside. So we kind of did a lot of
Just a
work.
question, so the site evaluation though that you didn't find any showstoppers?
Right, so that's kind of what I'm trying to say at the, end of the next slide maybe is like, this all kind of worked out, like the proof of concept worked. You'll see further on, well, you can go to the next slide, Drew. So
Before
this
you go to the next slide,
is kind of the same slide, but.
it looks as if you've pretty much covered the readily developable area. Where would the public safety?
Right. So that's this. So what we were looking at as part of this proof of concept was the additional area at the intersection of School and Atwater.
Okay.
So that's the additional area that we would, in the idea that it's a public safety, this would be your fire station garage. It would also likely be 2-level, so that it kind of works into what we're showing as the DPW garage and administrative area. So the building kind of near that corner. So, there's a DPW building that we're, trying to site. If we were to add police and fire either now or in the future, how would it kind of all work together and make sure that we answer that question now so that it gives us that opportunity in the future? So that's what we were looking at. That's why we did the additional borings kind of down on that corner. And so by kind of terracing the site a little bit or having, multi-level buildings, we can kind of make it all work without having, one skyscraper or all these,
Can you
other
just
kind of design elements.
Tell us what all of those structures or figures are there.
Right, so in the upper left corner, that's the DPW admin or administrative,
Okay,
area, as well as the garages. So, we have a couple of bays for,
okay,
active mechanical, but then, there's a water bay,
whatever, okay.
going on down the line. You'll see further on, we did do a fair amount of programming of the building itself, so we have kind of some thoughts and concepts for the area as built, but just in terms of blocks, that's what that is. To the right, to the right of that is just like your concrete block bins where you have like different, loom or, granular material. So it's just like open blocks that, you can drive a front end loader in to pick up and put it, load up a dump truck and send it out. Kind of working away around clockwise, the next kind of building that you see after the egress there is the salt shed. So we'd have to relocate the salt shed up there for, winter operations. The block next to that is actually the cell tower. So there is a cell tower there that we had to maintain access to. On the opposite side of the cell tower, going around clockwise still, is what we're calling like the water department closed cold storage. So it's, just a covered building, but it's not, has electricity, but not heat or anything like that. So there's a lot of water stock and stuff like that that we need to keep. And then the longer,
By water stock, you mean?
like valves, pipes,
valves,
all that stuff, they just don't.
Not chemicals.
Yeah, yeah, that all stays at the water treatment plant or wherever else. But yeah, this is just water department. We have stuff that we use to maintain the, lift station, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Doesn't need to be in the main garage area or the admin area, but needs to be covered somewhere. Then the last building there is more equipment and cold storage for highway department, which would also include like cemetery, parks, all that kind of stuff. So all that kind of equipment, as well as covered storage for stuff like our sidewalk tractor, MT tractor, so other equipment storage. So that's kind of how we worked around the site. In the block in the middle there is really a fuel depot and a truck washdown. That's something we don't have now that would be beneficial to the fleet and as well as to police and fire.
And the tennis courts?
That's actually just parking, but yeah, pickleball is what we like to call it. It's just parking.
You got a lunchtime activity.
Yeah, health and safety, So yeah, that's how we're working our way around the site. This is very conceptual, again, proof of concept. Make sure we're not forgetting anything. Obviously, some things will probably be horse traded or downsized in the future, but this gets everything there. Obviously, we like I said, we have kind of used up the whole site, but we've left that kind of additional expansion available down below. So I think we've covered all the bases. There were no showstoppers when it comes to survey, boring, solar, those types of things. All of this, in a future preliminary or even, actual design development, we would start talking about, the drainage and where we, route everything, utilities, stuff like that. How they come in, where they get sited, all that kind of stuff.
Is the bottom area, I assume that's a fairly steep grade going down to the access road or whatever it is?
Right, so what we're showing here is, the kind of, if you go up there now, if you've been up there since it was the compost, or even before that when it was like a town compost area, it's kind of like a hard right, that's still maintained there, but we're actually, when we do the final grading here, we're trying to make it a much softer come down around, so, as you come up to the site and take a hard right to circulate the site wherever you're going, when you exit, you're actually kind of coming around, up and then down at kind of a softer grade overall.
Okay, but I'm just looking at those bottom structures. You can't push them further back because the grade starts to get pretty steep.
Oh, you're coming off the backside.
That's what I'm thinking. Yes, that's why there's a lot of trees down there, but there's a
reason.
reason for that. That's really not
you're not making it
very
down
usable.
there. Yeah, that's
Okay.
not,
Understood.
that's kind of the end of the functional area of the site. So, in previous iterations of the siting analysis and the facility master plan, I think this is like a 7-acre site, really only 4,
Right.
maybe 5.
And I assume the same issue at the top edge going down to Atwater.
Not nearly as bad as
Not as
on
bad.
the southern edge. The southern edge is like really like
Really
a cliff,
drop.
where the northern edge is more kind of a
Okay.
gradual hill. That
And I will say, we're just showing you this one picture, this one proof of concept. When within the last several months, we did look at siting a building kind of at the corner of Kit Glass and Atwater, so like that part of the site. Further down towards that whole kind of bottom area, and like there's advantages and disadvantages to all of those types of things. I think one of the other things that we have to keep in the back of our mind is, even though it looks good on paper and in this plan, there are setbacks that we have to maintain. There are kind of buildable footprints that we're supposed to be within without getting variances and stuff like that from the different entities besides yourself. So, planning board, Concom also have jurisdiction. There will be wetlands that we are in the buffer zone or, encroaching on the buffer zone. So, we had to kind of take into account all of those things. So obviously the flatter, more already cleared area that's set back from the roads is the most advantageous and cheapest to build. But that's not to say we can't do other stuff as well. So we want to go to the next. So again, we didn't want to get too deep into the details, but there's we did do a fair amount of programming and floor plan kind of analysis in terms of just making sure we have all the basics covered, but also what are these multi-purpose areas that we would want to incorporate, whether it's in a just DPW site, but also potentially in the future being a public safety type campus. So we tried to be very cognizant of not overbuilding to the extent that we're planning on police and fire being there anytime soon, but also understanding that there are definitely limitations to the area available for current town operations, and wanted to make sure that we could fit as many of those in as possible. So that's what we were looking at here. We have a first floor plan, second floor plan. Obviously the garage area, there is no second story on the garage. It's just kind of a bigger building. But then on the left-hand side where you see all the different colors, those are the different, whether it's a meeting room area or training rooms or other multi-purpose rooms for equipment demos and stuff like that, but also, the incident command response if there's a, need. If down here, this is the room we're in would be the typical place for that, or the schools, this is kind of offering that as a secondary, or and hopefully when we get there, will be a primary function of that area. So I don't have really a lot to say here, except we did a lot of thinking. Obviously, this is where we would get into a bigger design effort where we would start cutting this down, or making some trading, or if we forgot something, other things would have to go in. But in terms of square footage, I think we're still where we had always been previously.
So on the square footage piece, how much additional square footage, obviously when it comes to a lot of the materials and stuff you have right now, you don't have anything covered, you're just bare minimum. when it comes to the administrative space, the stuff on the left, how much additional square footage is that than what you have right now?
I've not done that analysis, so I'd have to look. But
So I'm not sure what
it's
you're.
certainly additive.
Right, right. So I guess when we get to the point where we need to do the horse trading because our eyes might be bigger than our pocketbooks, right? I think it would be helpful for the taxpayers to understand how much additional square footage we have. And when it comes to especially the administrative space, we really need to be looking at all of your facilities, right? In that facilities master plan, where are all of these pockets of administrative space? Because when you start to take town hall and separate it, okay, what you wind up doing is building more administrative space, making it more difficult in some instances to share. You know, we're establishing condominium over in the Masons building. We're going to move some offices, you know, a couple over there. That's going to free up room here, right? So you take DPW, your office, you move it to this new place. Okay, that frees up room in town hall. I think in order to help the taxpayers understand what they're going to be getting for their dollar, we have to be clear on what we're going to do with all the space we're freeing up, right? And so I would just ask that you not think about this as just one project, but the beginning of some dominoes. And I think we've got to do some explaining around the rest of it. So that would be my number one. I'd also encourage us, number two, as we do the horse trading, to, don't spend $100,000 to protect a $50,000 piece of equipment, right? You want to be mindful of what really needs that storage and what doesn't. I mean, not every vehicle requires garaging. Okay, the expensive things that you invest in, obviously, but a lot of people in downtown, they don't have garages for their regular vehicles, right? So I just be mindful of what you're asking for from people who may not have that for their own vehicles. And I think the last comment I have is I would just really, we have to deliberate as a town on whether or not we want certain public safety activities to be on the other side of the highway. And I just would slow down that. I like the fact that you've planned and thought about, and looked at the site to see if there are any showstoppers. But as far as promoting, the fire department moving over there, I think we just need to slow that horse a little bit.
So
we have a deliberation across the town.
Right, for sure. So a couple things on some of the comments you just gave. So one, in terms of cold storage at our existing facility, we actually did have at least two cold storage buildings that had to be down.
Right.
So we are not necessarily asking for more than we've ever had, just more than we have today, maybe.
And that's what I'm just trying to get you to
we
tell
will
that
definitely
story.
get more into the weeds on, which piece of equipment warrants that sort of thing. But, all of the equipment that I'm envisioning, sidewalk tractor and, bigger dump trucks that, have our brakes are rotting and, different things like that, those are $multi-$100,000 pieces of equipment.
Right, yeah, and I'm
those
not
are
asking you to
big
justify it
items,
now, I'm just saying, these are the things, these are the
Right.
questions people are gonna ask, so you
Right.
wanna have those
And
answers.
so,
Yeah.
I think that's certainly top of mind when we, even when we got to where we are today. The other thing I guess I would just say is, certainly the public safety, whether or not that can move up there and whether or not it's, police and fire or just one or the other. That's totally up to everybody. I guess, as part of this, part of our scope and, getting to the next phase. So, there was this money approved at town meeting and wanting to, we need to figure that out. Before we, put a bow on this or sign off on anything, what we think as a project team would be helpful would be to have either some or all of you guys, as well as other stakeholders within the town, kind of form a stakeholder committee where we kind of vet some of these things, because making these decisions now, or not even making these decisions, but just having these conversations now at a more workshop type environment, rather than me presenting to you this
I was
plan
gonna
that may
ask,
or may
that was
not
gonna
be
be my
close to
next
final.
question is, did you envision having some type of a
Right, so,
separate committee to evaluate the facility?
well, so I think it's.
Task force, thank you,
I think
task force.
a couple of things. One is, like, I think we should have a workshop meeting now with anybody that's interested. And then I think we do need to have a stakeholder group, task force or otherwise, for the next phase of design for sure. So that's something that we kind of wanted to explain tonight. Take any feedback on this kind of, like I said, proof of concept, not even iteration, and make sure that we can put a good bow on this before we move to the next phase. Great if you want to go to the next slide. I don't think we really had too many more slides, but that's, again, this was just kind of a general update. This is not a finalized plan. This is just kind of showing you that we did a lot of work and a lot of homework to get through this. Yeah, this is just more bullets that we can send the slides on. I don't think it's worth.
Are these bays gonna be tall enough to get an excavator or anything like that in to work on?
So we only have a backhoe and a mini. It'll be big enough for our biggest piece of equipment, which would have been one of the dump trucks, and to be able to.
We'll be able to open.
So we're not. It may or may not appear so on the page, but the size of the bays on this are the exact same that we would have at the existing.
Same height.
If you jump forward to more slides, Chuck, it has the
Right. Oh, so we did have some
the-
elevations again, not. So great, you go to the next one. So like these are kind of typical elevations that we were thinking. So at the very top there, you have the administrative side. This has a little bit better, as shown here. Not, any decisions have been made or anything. But there are some architectural elements here that actually this is kind of modeled after the doctor's office next door. So yeah, the colors are just kind of there for a palette, but the finishes and the finish, exterior, that kind of stuff is in keeping with the next door neighbor. Again, this could be cement, concrete block. This could be something else, but this is just kind of a concept that we're showing. Again, the kind of middle there, that's the garage bays. Again, could be CMU, could be sloped roof, could be a flat roof. Like these are all decisions that would be made in the future. But we wanted to kind of show like there was a fair amount of thought that went into what it could be.
So is the plan to be a steel building or would it? I mean,
You tell me.
Could be anything.
Right. So, and like, there's a lot of faux finishes out there now that are almost as good. We're not talking sheet or shake, but definitely you can make it look sheet or shake. So, again, this would be a element that we would probably leave to a future stakeholder group. But the concept is kind of there that we could go in any direction.
Any questions from anybody online?
I guess I just put it out there, perfectly honest. How do you guys want to make the decision on whether or not public safety or any element, whether it's police or fire or either or
Let's
both?
build the
What is-
first one first.
Well, I guess I
I
would.
think Chuck is saying that if we knew we wanted to move either police or fire to this campus, there may be some economies of scale in the planning and design.
Right.
So it's a valid question to ask.
Middleton's doing the same thing right now, I think.
They're doing everything, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think they
But-
did massive.
So I think we have to have a conversation about that, though, because just in my mind, the sensitivity is around the fire department. Jake shows us the heat map every month of where the incidents are, and they're nowhere near that, So putting the fire on the other side of the highway is a concern.
Sure.
Police, I'm a little less concerned about that because your people are
We're always
patrolling.
on the road.
You're always on the roads, right? So I could be really open to that,
Right.
but fire makes me really, really nervous.
So kind of to that point, and where I was going was, I think we need to at least talk more in depth about it at some point, not tonight. But I think that for us to make the best decisions for just DPW or any other potential, we need to kind of have a
So-
clearer direction,
So
which isn't me.
would you suggest a public forum and what type of information would we bring to that? Is that a good place to
I
start?
guess there's a list of questions I have in my head is like, do police and fire have to be together? Would you want police to be at this site, so it's a DPW police, which hasn't really been something we consider. Like, I think that is actually a reasonable thing for us to program into the site without using that little corner down below. But we haven't programmed that because we haven't kind of had any of that conversation. It's always been police and fire together, or
So I'm almost I'm almost thinking of this like the Rotunda decision, you know, we had to make. We had different options that were bandied about, and it came to a point where we had some concrete examples and cost of what that might entail. I wouldn't necessarily go to all of that detail for meeting number one, but it might be helpful to have an initial discussion with the residents on, here are some options, and here are the questions we'd have to answer in order to get to a decision. Like I said, I personally, the fire is what makes me nervous.
well, and so kind of to that point is if it's not a campus solution, which was only ever kind of just proof of concept level at this location anyway, the previous thought was that police and fire shared would be at Pleasant Street where the DPW owns up. If it's just fire, that could easily still occupy that spot, but are there other options that you're envisioning for a fire only or even a share or, you know, rehab and play? Like, so the level that we've gone to for DPW has been siting analysis, facility master plan, and now this proof of concept area, taking into account maybe there's other potential needs that would go up there. If we were to do a siting analysis just for fire department or just for public safety, we might be able to inform these decisions, but we have not done that yet. So that would be something I would ask you guys is if you want us to do that, or maybe it needs to be budgeted and we need to do that level of analysis, but I need direction.
On the graphic that you had up there on the corner of Atwater, was that an assumption that it was both police and fire?
Right, so that footprint, based on the square footages of, and build out area that we needed, that area would work. And then we, went the next level of borings, survey, making sure it would be a contiguous site.
All right, well, my opinion is whatever happens, it's going to be kind of a staged activity because the money that's involved is not something that you're going to be able to spend in one shot. And in other words,
Well, it depends. I think it depends on the option.
But the infrastructure.
we haven't got to the numbers yet, but the numbers are significant.
For sure. Can I ask a question?
I'm sorry, you should ask that of me,
I'm
not
sorry,
of him.
that's through the chair.
Thank you.
And this is actually for Nate too, is Pleasant Street. There are areas that might be compromised. Okay, where housing wouldn't be appropriate. Okay. There are areas where we can put housing down there, but if the whole site is not amenable, it probably couldn't put housing in the entire site. Would that then make
So
some sense?
I think that's a
To put the
really
fire
good
department-
question.
I'm a big fan of putting everything together in one place. Okay, but if that becomes a problem, then we can kill two birds with one stone by taking that contaminated or that less than desirable area that is questionable, put the fire department there, and put. I think that's just something to
So
consider as well.
I guess where you're going, I like where you're going, and thinking about, in order to really fully assess our options, you did a site evaluation of School Street. Do we have a comparable site evaluation of Pleasant Street? And do we really know, are we sure which areas could be used for housing versus not? Have we already done that analysis?
Well, if you're talking about just soil analysis,
Yeah, I think that's where we would have to get into an MCP evaluation or a 19E. And so that is like one of those things that could be, if you found something that is extremely like a VOC that has a reportable limit, and not knowing what we did at that DPW yard, over the last 100 years, it's very hard to say what we could find in the soil. It could be totally innocuous and just the normal like hydrocarbons, petroleums. Those are easily remediated, but if it's something else that, is more like the burn dump, Pine Street, that's obviously a different and much.
Closing our eyes and pretending it hadn't happened is a bad strategy.
No, and that's I don't think what we're suggesting. I think it's just a matter of when they occur, if you go in and you take a sample
Yep.
and you find something bad,
You have to deal with it
you
right
have
now.
to act, you have to act on it. There's no, oh, we'll deal with this in 5 years. You have to act immediately. So that's kind of the balancing act where if we're doing it on an existing site that we're using,
That's a
that
problem.
could
Okay,
really hamper things.
Okay, so the,
Yeah. it's,
my thought is what, kind of echoing one of the things, one of the many things he said, is the duplication of office, of administrative space. That perhaps, rather than having a separate building for whatever public safety we share, have some possibility of adding on to the administrative area for the DPW. Not building it right away, but having it designed so that it can be
Right.
expanded
yeah, I mean,
and share the larger spaces.
that picture looks lovely, but it looks like it's the size of Town Hall. How much square?
Just
I mean, it does look that way.
It looks
So-
big.
so I'm-
Right,
so
so you
there's-
need some scale to
We need
look
some
at.
scale. If you take a plan like that to the taxpayers and you say, we're going to build an administrative facility for the DPW that's as large as Town Hall, I don't think that's going to fly, right? So I want to be mindful of, again, the sharing of administrative space. What are we going to do with the space we're freeing up here if your offices are moved there? We've got to answer that question. I think also fire department, I know there's some equipment there that probably needs some protection from the water, but do we really have to move it? Is that, I know the police department floods regularly, but is there a mandate for us to move the fire department? So I just think there are a few things we need to tell the whole story about. What are the requirements is really what I'm asking to focus on. Requirements. What problems are we trying to solve? And we've got to get clear on that. And then we can start talking about designs. You're trying to protect some equipment that doesn't have protection right now. You need some privacy and office space.
Well, I don't want to sell us short. We have done a lot of that. And we
I'm
have,
talking about communicating it, not that you haven't done the work. I'm talking about communicating it to the people who you're going to ask to pay for it.
right, so I guess that's why I'm here tonight, to communicate, but also to set up the next phase, which I believe should be some sort of workshop that we can vet out these questions, and whether it's a public meeting or just an open meeting with, not the entire board, but a few select members and other boards that, have vested interest, like, happy to do that. We need to do that. That's what I'm promoting. So, you tell me.
I want to go back to this issue about the testing of the existing site, because a lot of this planning and moving around is expecting that you can use that site for something else. Are those borings, or that testing is going to have to be done one way or another at some point?
So we've talked to the LSP that did the work at the burn dump, just to kind of tell them our thought process here. And what they recommended was doing some sort of desktop analysis first, shorter money, to kind of get a feel, do some interviews, do some research, come up with a memo report type thing. That's prior to taking samples and getting those samples tested,
Right.
which is what Nate's talking about. That will have to be done for sure. But doing it now
You want to wait till
jeopardizes
the new house is built or
right.
close to
existing
being
DPW
finished.
operations.
No, we don't want to build them and move
Yeah,
them.
you don't want
Yeah.
you don't want to shut yourself down.
Yeah, so, I think, we will get
So-
there, but it's
So what if we
gotta move the phase.
get a small group together to at least sketch out some options, right? That are worth pursuing and bringing to a public forum? Does that make sense?
When you say a small group, who would you see, what demographic?
So, who are the majors, other than the select board, right? Who would be some major stakeholders?
Well, so just in terms of boards and committees, I think planning board, because this is in the LCD, so we need a special permit no matter what. There's setback requirements that we may or may not be able to meet, whether we do this plan or a different one. So, planning board at some level, Concom, like I said, on that Atwater side, we're the buffers are right there. So, no matter what, we will be, with Concom. After that, I think,
Probably a couple of
FinCom.
people.
yeah, FinCom makes sense.
Mhm.
But
And some select board and some at large.
So what is the next, let's just say we get this group together to sketch out some options we're pursuing using the facilities master plan as a kind of a roadmap, high-level roadmap, right? What is the next step what is the next set of input you need to take whatever your next step is? What would we be asking that team to do as a deliverable? I'm asking.
well, so I guess we could present what we've done to date at a more detailed level than we did tonight. Because like I said, tonight was just a proof concept, check in, what we do. So we had done a lot of extra work on why we made these decisions. And so I would relate that to the group. And then we need some path forward on, I still think we might be into the next level of design, which means the next appropriation before we can definitively say, we're cutting out 20% of the square footage, stuff like that. Like, we're not there yet.
So I
But
would
in terms of like existing space, potential uses of this space that we're vacating, or the
I'm going
site.
to ask you to do something I always ask you to do the opposite of, so bear with me. I'm going to ask you to put your engineering hat on, okay? So I should ask you to take it off, right? Starts with requirements, right? I think it makes sense to get, when you talk about bringing people up to speed, I do think it makes sense to bring that small group up to speed on what the requirements are, what you think the requirements are. Because sometimes you have to do some horse trading on the requirements, right, before you go too far on the design. That's my concern, is we haven't really deliberated on requirements, and that has some benefit to it.
Maybe we need some kind of overlay of what we have now,
Right.
plus what we've lost over the years. And overlay it on top of what you have here to see what the differences are.
Also, I'd like
I think a lot of that we addressed in the
Yeah.
initial DPW.
So there was a siting assessment
Yeah, siting
that
assessment.
compared Pleasant Street as DPW versus this site as DPW. So that, I think, gets into the first phase of that. Obviously, this is built out a little bit differently because more information now, more time. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of those things.
Just to keep the scope within what could be managed. Let's not put that group in charge of figuring out what can be done with the existing site.
What I would like to do is sit down, or I'd like to see the two chiefs, Chuck, sit down and find out if in fact it's viable as an entire municipal site or not. If there's pros and cons to that as well. Before we start getting too far ahead, if all of a sudden
Well,
the
that's
two
what
chiefs-
I
yeah.
mean by requirements,
Okay, the
okay?
two
So
chiefs,
what
and even the
requirement is, what
harbor master
problem are you
involved.
trying to solve? Okay,
Well,
really, that's what a
space
requirement is.
And updating.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we put the two chiefs into this task force, or do they become consultants for the task force?
That's the chief.
I mean, I was hoping I would be involved.
Okay.
Yes, I would think so. If I may ask, when you defined that area up at the corner of Atwater, did you have in mind, or has there been any study about how much square footage a police department needs?
Right. So that's part of
And
the
the
facility
facilities
master
master
plan.
plan has
So that number exists.
Yeah, and we were transposing that on that area. So we've done
Okay,
that.
so you know
that's why
that-
proof of concept wise, we're there. I purposely told our consultants not to put building on there, just show the area, because I thought showing the building would get a little too.
And that was with
We
the,
do exactly this kind of discussion.
yeah. And the police department and the fire department, I mean, those were two footprints that you kind of put up there and say, hey, you can
So-
fit this in somehow.
Right,
Okay.
and again, think two level. So there's for
Under-
police
understood.
fire, you would have
Okay.
garage area down low and then administrative on top, kind of similar to DPW we're showing, although, same place with the car.
Okay.
Things can change.
My initial thought is to put together a Cricket article with some of these pictures and a description of what we're looking for and ask
Seek,
volunteers.
volunteers, yeah.
Well,
And
Like, so if we had, like we did for
Luckily, somebody
the
wrote an article, I
TA
think,
task
a couple
force.
weeks ago about embarking on a facility master plan, so we should be able to do another edition of
But
that.
it's more specific. It's about, we're ready to start, in earnest, designing some of these buildings, determining which buildings we need and where they need to be. And we want some at-large residents to participate in a task force, right? And so, I think that's
Although that top picture scares me.
well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure I would post a picture.
Rick, can you
I
change the
think
slide?
if you tell people they're going to be rebuilding town hall, I mean, that's just a.
What is the square footage of that?
Yeah, I understand we don't have a perspective on the size. It just looks scary, that's all.
Yeah.
I don't know. Layla, the architect's on the call. Layla, do you know off the top of your head the square footages of the administrative area? I don't know that we even put that level of detail. I mean,
No,
it exists, but I don't think we.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay, we see that about like the first floor and the maintenance bays altogether is about 16,000 square feet. And keep in mind that under that administrative wing, there's a lot of support spaces that function with the maintenance bay and, for the staff when they come after incidents. The second floor is just about 5,000 square feet.
505,
And how big is this building? How big is this building?
that's a lot.
So total square footage altogether would be approximately
I'm sorry.
20,000 square feet.
I'm sorry, my question was how big is town hall?
Oh, sorry, that I cannot
I
say.
think about 12.
This building is 12,000 square feet.
6 over 6. Well, the 3 floors, but
Right.
So based on what Layla's saying, the administrative size, Layla, is roughly 5 over 5.
Yeah.
So 10,000 square feet.
In terms of footprint.
But yeah, it is what it is. I mean, I'm not shying away from it. Where there are spaces that we don't have now that are programmed into here. There are consolidation of spaces that make sense. I think there's a whole floor over at Seaside 1 that would come over here in the future build out scenario. So like we have thought about these things.
But we also have to consider that the basement of this building is probably not
usable, viable.
No, it's not.
Right. So these are
Maybe
addressing
it
things.
It's not
becomes a
long-term
meeting
use.
space that it can flood, but it doesn't become office space.
We had an emergency response training that we couldn't hold at any town building just last month. So like,
But that's what I mean about the requirements. Before we start talking design, when you talk requirements with people, it helps them understand the why. And you don't get any money unless they understand the why. So I really think that's going to be our first.
And if I may say just a quick, because, from the architectural engineering perspective, this is where the floor plans, which are the ones that come to the fore and which we dug into very much with Nate and Chuck's feedback about what is needed. And the whole thing was this was supposed to be pretty much pragmatic, based on operations and feedback and lessons learned from how things, would need to be improved or could move forward in the future. So I do think, yes, when we put elevations, it's just to give a general sense of what the aesthetics could look like, and we put the first one and the second one. But the meat and the core of this went into the programmatic relationship between the spaces that are really perceived mostly in the
Are we ready to put together the task force? Well, we start. And I'm afraid.
I mean, I can quarterback it. Like I just want to get you guys on board, but I'll reach out to the chairs of various boards we talked about. I'll put out some feelers to the town. I'll put out an article in the Cricket.
I think for all of our task forces and committees, we do an open posting, right? So we determine what the makeup of the task force would be, who has to be represented, and then usually it's the chairs of those committees, or those committees themselves decide who's going to be represented on the task force. And for, the at-large, we would do an open posting and see who's interested in interviewing.
Okay. In the MBTA, we use
9 people.
9 people. I've got, if you have 1 from the planning board, 1 from the Concom, FinCom, probably 2 at large, police and fire, and DPW. That sounds like.
And select one.
And select. Whether I said it or not, it's on my list.
How many is that?
1, 2, 3,
Two
4,
at large,
5, 2 for
seven.
DPW.
8, 9.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're going, and when they meet, you will describe to them your requirements and this presentation more or less.
Yeah, no, so I see it doing, get the people in a group. We'll just kind of give them the nickel tour if they want it, plus, all this kind of background information, help them digest that. Listen to whatever feedback they have or questions they have on those things, and then the next meeting will be the one where we really dive into particulars.
How many people have you got? You got 9 or 10?
I'm sorry, I lost track. Yeah, 2 at large, fire, police, that's 4. How many from DPW and select
I think
board?
probably
Planning?
2 from DBW, probably. That's a big
So if we
driver.
have 2, that's 10.
Yeah, that's 10. That's why I was just doing the math.
Besides me and Nate, or including?
Including you. That's it.
So it'll be me.
You have to be there too.
Be easier if I was.
Okay, so you will put together something for the Cricket announcing that we're putting together a task force to review and evaluate plans for the space. And,
Do you guys envision the commitment being through final design or just to get to design?
That's a good question. I mean, most towns, I know they have these facilities task force whenever there's a big building. I haven't done it in the public sector, only the private sector, so I don't know.
I would guess that we would look for a different set of people for this initial evaluation.
Yeah.
Rather than,
As long as they know when we get to the second task force, first task force decision stand. But yeah.
yeah.
So that's why I asked what the deliverable is expected to be out of this particular task force. Is it scope? Is it requirements? Is it budget? What do we want as a deliverable from this task force? Scope seems options. What I mean,
I would say scope. And look to see if it's worth it to have police and fire up there as part of the whole thing.
I think we're at a point where we should look for a recommendation of this task force on outcomes for this site. Not necessarily.
Not just DPW.
Right.
That all has to be.
And then, based on that, that will include taking looks at and a deeper dive than we're prepared to tonight on School Street and Pleasant Street, School Street meaning the fire station. But so I think we should take a look at the whole picture. But I'm not gonna be able to push us.
So is it really
I mean-
three, from a scope standpoint, is it really three? It's DPW by itself, DPW plus police, DPW plus full public safety.
Sure.
And where?
This site, meaning,
Well, I think
meaning
what's-
one of those
I think
three
he's
go on this
saying-
site.
Focus this task force on this site.
Yeah.
That's what he's suggesting.
I'm beginning to think that maybe we should ask the DPW to come up with a list of what they want from the task force.
Mhm.
So take it up, get it started at our next meeting rather than trying
Yep.
to sort
That's a good
out
idea.
all of the options right now. So if you could come back, yes, exactly, Debbie, with maybe the list of groups is different, but come back with a concrete recommendation for what you would like to have done.
For the deliverables for the task force.
And what-
So the result of tonight is that lots of things are doable at School Street.
Right.
That's really the bottom line.
There's no showstoppers.
This was just
geotechnically,
a kind of a
survey
pie.
wise, programming wise, like we can make it all work.
We're not looking for a footprint out of this group, per se. You've got a footprint up here, but that's really just to demonstrate that this can work.
Yeah, proof of concept is what we're
Right.
calling it.
That's all it is.
We actually had other proof of concepts, but I didn't want to try and go through 5
No.
different proof of concepts.
No, that's where you're getting way out over the skis on that.
Good.
Okay.
We, just totally messing everything up here, because that's what I do. First Baptist Church site up, is that big enough for everything?
We didn't look at it for everything. We can apply those same principles that we have in the facility master plan
This is just
to that
spitballing
site.
here. No land swap. Okay, with the church. That's fire department on this side of 128. It's worth making a phone call.
Yeah, we can look at the acreage and, again, the kind of buildable areas.
Topo's an issue there.
Pardon?
Topo's a little bit, I mean.
Yeah, no,
obviously,
that's what I'm
yeah,
thinking, that's something I'm
Site's
thinking.
got its own
Yeah.
Yeah.
issues, too.
Topo will be an issue for them too at the
Yeah,
school
yeah,
district side, but
yeah.
Let me ask you this, is it worth, I can make a phone call, is it worth making a phone call?
Yes, of course.
Yes,
it's
it
worth
is worth
After
making
we-
a phone call, absolutely.
Well, I'd like to hear, I don't wanna spend any time on it if after a cursory look at this thing, you say,
Yeah,
yeah,
we-
the topo's bad. this
we'll do a
side's-
cursory
Yeah.
look and get
Yeah,
back.
and if you get back to me, then we can certainly make a phone call and see if that's something that they would, because they're just doing nothing over there at this point.
Yeah, but they're not gonna like being up on ditching everything that they've already done. But-
It's worth,
It's worth asking.
it's worth the
It's worth
ask.
asking.
The ask doesn't cost any money at all.
Thank you.
I think we've done what we can tonight.
Great, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice
Ready for the next one?
I'm,
Hey, let's do this again sometime.
I'm gonna ask that we let the people for the sculpture go ahead of you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much, I appreciate
I
it.
think it's going to be quick.
I'm
I
gonna be
think-
Santa, we were helper here. Thank you. Welcome. We only saw 5 members on the website, so
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
hope you can find it of
Okay,
interest.
thank you.
Very
Good stuff, we can share.
appreciate it.
Hope that this is going to be the fun topic of the evening, because art is always beautiful. My name is Elisa Banani, I am a sculptor. I was chosen by the New England Art Magazine as Emerging Artist for 2024. I'm also the exhibition chair of the New England Sculptor Association. We represent over 200 sculptors across New England. I had a dream about a mermaid here, and my art goal is to awaken the connection between human and nature. And this mermaid would do this perfectly because Atlantis, the tide's keeper, that's the name of the mermaid, she would be placed in Moscow. There is a perfect spot for her, actually two, and then we will have to see what's the best. And she would interact with the tide. The tide would submerge her up to her shoulder when it's high, and would unveil her body when it's low tide. It's something that does not exist in the United States or America or in the whole world. There are two sculptures that interact with the tides, and they are in England. One is a sculpture of a bunch of horses, and another one is a sculpture of military guys. But a mermaid doesn't exist, and there's something magical and beautiful about having a mermaid that gets submerged by the tide, because it reminds us of our connection with nature, and it's something magical that would add a lot of character to the town. It could become a permanent landmark that reflects Manchester identity, because it's Manchester by the sea. There is definitely a connection with the sea and the ocean. Atlantis, because it's on the Atlantic Ocean, but also because it's a reminder of the lost city of Atlantis, the myth. So there's a lot of potential, of touristic potential, because this little mermaid, because she would be life-size, for example, could become even more known than the Little Mermaid of Copenhagen, which is a touristic attraction where everyone from the whole world that goes and is in awe. And so then to help me achieve this goal, I have, as I've been chosen by the New England Art Magazine as an emerging artist, they've already shown some interest in featuring my next public project. So there will be articles. I will use the New England Sculptor Association as a help to publicize this project, which I think that is so unique that will speak on its own, but I have ways of promoting it. I would donate my time and skills to do it. And I would take my time, sculpt a beautiful mermaid, and I will cast it in bronze. So everyone that I spoke to about this project was in love with it, and I already found some privates and also like a corporate that is willing to give me money to fund the project. So I'm confident that I will find the money to do this. So I'm not asking for money or anything, but I will also explore like public grants. We have like a grant writer for the New England Sculptor Association that is very good at this and can definitely help me go forward with this project. I was thinking that it would be nice to include maybe a plaque on site with the donor names, because this is a dream, and also this makes me think of the United States as a place where you can still like make a dream come true. And from a dream that I had, because I really had this vision in a dream, I'm here now speaking to you guys, and maybe with the effort of the whole community and beyond, we will be able to make it happen and make this like a unique feature for a beautiful town like Manchester. So it's a very inspirational piece because it makes you realize that a dream can come true. So before exploring everything else, so the installation that I will definitely have to consult with the marine structural engineer, and I also have our president of the New England Sculptor Association that has done many projects like this. So I have ways of getting information and making this installation safe and secure and suitable for the environment. It would be a bronze, so bronze is very safe and actually it ages really beautifully. So we will not even maybe have to do a patina because the ocean gives the piece a beautiful verdigris patina over time. So it just like will change and beautify itself with time. So basically what happens is I sculpt the original model in clay and then bring it to the foundry. They make a lost wax model and then they cast it in bronze. And so what I really would like to understand is I am supported by the town to pursue this dream, because the only thing I really would need help with is being guided towards like what's my next step, because I believe that I will need to maybe speak to the conservation land or the harbor master, and so I would like to understand if it's something that you guys feel like supporting me, and then I will do the job on my own with friends and helpers and the New England Sculptor Association. But before putting time and my heart into this, I need to understand if on your side there's the willing to, you have this vision like me and you can see this mermaid when you are at Moscow, if you can picture something like this, it would be different. This is a mermaid that I already did for the Heritage Garden Museum, and I changed the tail, so it would be
I'm trying to picture
different.
which part of the harbor, so exactly where in the harbor.
So basically, when we are sitting at the benches, we look in front of us, and we see there is like two places that are perfect.
And there's the one that's connected to Masco, and then there's another piece
The little
that's
spillway
Exactly.
rocks.
that comes down, that was the other side of Tidal Gate.
Yes. And this would be ideal because it's very central, and it would bring, so Gloucester has the fishermen, and Gloucester is a bigger town, every town has something, but this is so unique and so magical. I'm also thinking the families, the kids, the people not from here, wondering, if they will have to check the tide to know if they're going to be able to see the old mermaid. There's the sense of awe and magic that goes very well with this town because it's so beautiful. We have the church bells that plays wonderful music. We have the best sunsets, and I think that this would be something that can beautify the place and make it even more an artistic town and a destination for tourism. So yeah, so this is, I'm just gonna pass it around if you guys want to look at it.
Looks comfortable. Comfortable to be sitting on a rock.
And Cultural Council, who else would feel
The Howard,
that
we
they
have to-
have a say in this?
And Bion and
I think the
Concom.
Howard is for sure.
Those are the three that come to mind.
Yeah.
Cultural
I
Council.
don't know if it's in the head.
Those are the three, yeah.
Get a vote in there, you
Oh,
have more problems than that.
It's nice soft mud.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking all of a sudden,
Nice
folks are
soft
whack in the
rocks.
head.
Their location. Have you worked with bronze in salt water before? I'm just wondering, tide going up and down, I got no problem with salt water necessarily interacting with it. You wind up with seaweed and a slime that you have to get rid of every month or something, or?
No, it's very safe, and as I said, there are multiple now there has been even like a underwater sculptural garden that have been made with this material, and they just age beautifully because she's a being that belongs to the ocean.
Okay.
So even if we have an algae on the tail, it's just gonna
wondering,
beautify that.
Is stuff
I
going to
think.
grow?
But I don't, but yeah, I think that's the least of our concerns. And as maintenance, I'm here, so I would be willing to do if there is any maintenance, but there is no maintenance to be done most likely with the bronze because it's a material that is environmentally safe, but also like age on its own, so.
An intriguing offer. I might put DPW on the list. I don't know how something like this gets installed, but maybe DPW would have to be involved in that in some way. I don't know.
I would start with Bion, I mean, everything.
Oh, no, you start with him.
He's got to know.
Yeah, he's gonna probably be marine,
Might even be Tom Baker.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah.
Tommy Baker and, it's basically one big mooring, big.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really mooring.
That's what it is.
Oh, sorry, wrong word.
I think what we're prepared to say is that we're intrigued.
Very,
Yeah.
yeah. I'd like to take it to the next level if it's.
But we would like you to get in touch with the organizations that Greg has listed, and get their approval and come back and we will say, assuming that everybody else is as intrigued as we are,
So could I, when I contact them, could I say that I have your support in this or not?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be thank
We just
you
need some-
for considering it, and it would be a lovely gift
Thank
to
you
the
so
town.
much.
These
It is
other,
like
these
adding
other
a little
councils,
jewel
they,
to the Cape and, landscape. You know, not competed with Gloucester, but it's like adding more to it, so.
I don't predict that it's going to supplant the rotunda.
Oh, there might
Can
be
you
something
see
to
it from the
replace it.
rotunda? That's what I was asking about.
It's,
placement,
yeah,
I mean,
it's-
We don't need
It's
to
something-
compete. It's
No,
two different
it's-
things,
it's-
and I think that it's a unique piece in the whole world. So if we do market this correctly, and I will do my part for it, I think that this can become huge because it's a unique piece. I can see people traveling to see this from all over the world.
Well, right off of Masconomo is a perfect spot. It really is.
She belongs there. I think.
Yeah.
So now the next
True,
question.
off the end of Masconomo Park.
Who is the DPW in particular?
I wouldn't go with them right away. That's really purely installation. I'd go after Bion right
Yeah,
away.
set the harbor master.
The harbor
No, he's
master.
gonna have,
And
yeah.
and talk to Concom with the conservation agent.
Yeah.
Bethany, we can give you some contact.
Okay, so how am I getting the contact?
We can email you some
Okay,
contact.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
so happy and so excited to bring
I
this
wanna-
vision to life because I think it's going to be beautiful and it's also going to be so inspiring for everyone because seeing that us as a community can bring this to life, me with my gift, some other people making a donation, some others with their time, It's just like a community effort to birth together something beautiful. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you so
Hey,
much.
great.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I really appreciate it.
May I
Thank you for
understand
your
by
time.
October's
Thank
Cape
you
Ann
for
Pioneer?
everything. And thank you for letting me go before you.
Thanks so much.
I really appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Have a great evening. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I came just for you, Tom. I came just for you. I know you.
Oh,
Now we're getting there.
Yeah.
Time goes by quickly these days. Well, I guess you guys have my memo.
Summary.
Quick summary. Put together kind of quick, it's kind of time restricted the last few weeks, but any questions without going through it? Couple of further updates from what's in there, but
I got a question. This is kind of, I don't know if it's relevant or not. There's a town meeting going on in Essex right now about the school budget. Directly affects one of your employees.
so depending on which budget goes through, we were notified by the school that her position potentially could be cut 50%. So the reimbursement would be I figured out it was 2.5 days. She would be attached to the school. It was fully funded and we're going back to where we,
And
which is 5 days.
So would you have work for her the other 2.5
Oh, yeah.
days if that,
and
yeah.
the-
Okay, that's what I
I'm sure you
figured,
have work. The
yeah.
question might be, do
I'm
you
more
have
concerned- I don't
budget?
care
How would
about
you
that.
cover
What
it
about
budget-wise?
Daisy?
Yeah.
I mean, she's fully budgeted through us and
Okay.
and the school reimburses us at the end of the day.
But if the school didn't
It's a lost
reimburse you as
revenue.
much,
Right.
it's
Oh,
lost
it's lost
revenue, would you still be able to
income.
cover it?
Okay, understand.
So Daisy's is safe for all.
Davies safe. We have three, as you see my memo, we have 3 corporate sponsors for the summer. I think there's one more coming in, I hope. Manchester Marine, Manchester Electric, and what's the other one? The Rotary again. Tiffany's working with those 3 groups, and Daisy will wear their emblem for the month, and then she's going to spend the day actually at Manchester Marine, just hanging out with
Oh.
employees.
Got a weekend day in the summer, that's really what you
Yes,
wanted.
exactly.
She just seems like it's a diva as far as I can see on the
She is.
sleep mask, really?
Huh?
Mask so she can sleep. Diva.
The Cape Ann Emergency or Regional Planning Committee is up and running. We have a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak. We're finalizing the regional shelter plan. That's been kind of tough, getting the final details with Gordon College, but I got an email today. I think that's coming to the end. We're planning on a hazmat, a tabletop exercise that's based in Cape Ann, a major hazmat incident, how we would respond to that. We're having a North Shore Emergency Management Sustainability Conference. And one of the things that's kind of further down the list, but a traffic plan, how do we evacuate Cape Ann, similar to what Cape Cod has. And then we're going to expand the REPC to regional dispatch, Red Cross. I'm going to bring in the hospitals, Leahy, with Beverly and Addison Gilbert. Some of the bigger companies in Gloucester with Applied Materials, Gordon's, obviously Cape Ann Transportation Authority, Americold, and then we're going to incorporate all the public health entities. So that's up and running. And then one of my new notes that's not in this memo is in September, Hamilton got a grant to support a active shooter drill regionally. So it's going to be a rather large drill. We have our first meeting tomorrow, and that was funded by NERAC. So looking forward to that. Very great. So that was pretty much it. As you see in my personal highlights, still sit on the Mass Chief School Safety and Security Committee. The emergency preparedness for the town is obviously the top priority. Looking into a certification course at Babson College that trains me in how to do threat assessment for buildings, but I've been waitlisted for that. Unfortunately, I was really looking forward to that. And as you can see, I don't know if you noticed, driving on 127, Bridge Street, Summer Street, the speed limits have been finally changed.
Yep. As a result of the bike and thing.
Yes.
And then that's pretty much it with the highlights. Any questions?
No, I really appreciate all of the reporting, the detail associated with this emergency planning, because that in general is invisible to the citizenry, okay? Invisible to a lot of us. It's something you don't need until you need it, and then if you haven't got it, it's a real problem.
Yeah,
So
I think
it's very educational.
We've come a long way in the last 5 to 7 years, especially since Chief McNeely's been on board in training and, finally getting our plans up to date.
Yeah.
Modernized.
So it looks like you're in the kind of the final, a lot of things are
Really coming together.
are getting.
And the whole Cape Ann Regional Emergency Planning Committee, that was pretty much spearheaded from the tabletop exercise we had here. That was one of the outcomes of that, so it really
Was it 2 years ago, or when was that? Yeah, about 2 years ago, I guess, I recall that. No, that's good. No, appreciated that. I just might have one question. How is your overtime going? Because I know that you've got more or less fully staffed now,
Yeah.
and I know you had big problems the last couple of years.
We're down, I have an employee on maternity leave. I have an employee out long-term. So overtime is there, but we're cut down to 2 persons on a shift, so there's no one in the office pretty much.
Yeah.
7 days a week. We are taking a look at weather on certain nights. We will put that 3rd person on. If we had to do it on Friday night, we had 150 kids come from out of town from another school system that they had to deal with, so we had to upstaff that night. We actually call people in to help, and our mutual aid request from Essex. But overtime is, right now, it's slim.
Okay, I mean, it's close to budget?
Close to budget. Yeah,
Okay.
we're a little bit down from where we were last year just because of the two people that we had.
All right. Just know, I know the last few years, because of, well, various issues, it was like 2x, 3x, or whatever. So it's close. Okay, good. Well, great.
To that point, to your point, I was at Bravo Friday when the whole hordes came off the beach.
Great.
And Sean Mullen I thought the police presence was there, and it was impressive.
We actually got word that they were coming to town, so we met them at the train. And Officer Johnson and Sergeant Gilson really laid the law down. Night went very smooth. But those are the things we have to plan, especially this time of year.
It was impressive. Thank you.
No, thank you for all your hard work and your department, and things look good, so it's great.
Got a couple of questions, I always do.
Yeah.
I really like the partnerships, the regional partnerships that you've established over the past few years. That's fantastic. Question on a more local issue, parking enforcement. I saw the notifications come out that we're going to start enforcing the resident parking and and everything. But the additional safety sticks that you have, you said you're still hiring 2 parking enforcement officers.
we
Are you
have
going to
them-
expand where they go, or how's that going to work?
That's the plan. So we're going to expand the areas up School Street, up Pine Street, down Bridge Street towards Ashland Ave.
Okay.
And then we'll see where that goes. And then I think Sergeant Luke has a plan developed for them.
Okay.
And then he will, obviously put that into place. But one of the things like I said, we are doing is we're expanding those locations. The other place is Coach Field Playground. We're going to do regular patrols through as well.
And going by White Beach.
White Beach, yeah, they do that on a routine basis.
Great, that was, so that was one question. The other question is, in other areas of town hall, we've had a lot of discussion recently about succession planning. So how's yours?
I could walk out the door tomorrow and Mark could sit in my seat without any issues at all. He is waitlisted for the National Academy, and he's waitlisted for the PERF, the Police Executive Research Executive Training.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Okay. 10 minutes ago, we talked about a task force. And you said you'd love to be on it. Who's going to be on it?
Mark will probably be.
Because that's really what I think is important, is if we have an internal candidate we're trying to develop, it's got to be done out in the open.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not the decision maker on who that is. And so we should start seeing more of any internal candidate that you think wants to compete for that position.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he's ready to go forward and do that type. You will see him more when we get into the budget season this year. You've already.
When's your next vacation?
I don't know. It could be tomorrow.
Guess what? You leave somebody in charge with.
Oh, I always do. Yeah.
Without you answering your email?
I always do. Yeah. If I go overseas, I have a personnel order that automatically goes out there running the show.
Just to that point, I've seen Mark at basketball games, football games, where I don't see him. Right, I think he was at the Little League parade.
He was.
Yeah. So there is he is out and visible.
Yeah, he's
There's
out there. I
visibility
see
in
him
the
all the
community, but what I'm talking about is
I know
visibility
exactly.
in demonstrating the skills necessary to step into a higher level position. Leaving him in charge with you saying, don't call me, I'm going on vacation, is the absolute best thing you can do. And the more frequently you do that, the better, right? There's
No,
talking about it and
it's
there's doing it, right? But that's how people get prepared.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Thank
This has been,
that's great.
This is the last one?
Another quarter.
Another quarter of improvements.
And we're on baby watch. I have my
I was
second
gonna
grandchild
say.
any
Oh.
minute.
I was gonna
Any
say,
minute.
did I miss the baby
Any
announcement?
minute.
Any minute. I was
Running
like-
Is there something in the water here or what?
Epidemic.
Yeah.
An epidemic of
No.
grandchildren, that's
Are you
a
a
good
papa?
one.
What are you?
Papa.
Papa.
Yeah.
Great, we discussed this, what are you?
Grandpa.
I was supposed to be grandpa, but
You know, you don't choose the names.
No, I don't choose
Now you
that.
gotta choose the names.
This is true.
Good luck with that.
so hopefully tonight.
Awesome.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
All right, thank you
very
guys.
much.
Yep.
Thank you. We'll see you.
Oh, thank you for your patience.
Isn't it to stand here?
No.
Hope Wabuchi, Manchester by the Sea, 2004. Here with a request to raise the progress flag on the town flagpole on May 31st, 2025. We delineate what's the town flagpole.
The town flagpole is the pole nearest the street.
Oh, so this was the flagpole in front of the town hall, and we're going all the way over here,
Yes.
By the fountain.
the farthest point away that you could possibly get from the town hall. Okay, so will the United States flag be removed and the progress flag be put in place?
The Manchester town flag will be removed.
But that town flag pole, if you look at the half-staff right now, there's not room for a second flag.
That's because it's at half-staff.
Right, so if it should be needed to be at half-staff during the month of June, what happens to the harvest? And why is it that we could not fly the progress flag, given that we already have an official town flagpole in front of it?
I get it, this.
The
Oh,
the official town flagpole is the one closest.
So whose town flagpole is that
That's not a town flagpole.
anymore?
That is a flagpole that is in control of
The Legion.
the
Oh, that was voted on? The last meeting I was at and previous years before that, our town manager identified that flagpole as the town flagpole. And I believe in the last meeting I was at,
I'm sorry, do you want us to fly the pride flag? Or do you want to have a fight with the Legion?
like, I was unaware that the Legion now is the owner of what was the town flag. Is that what I'm just trying to clarify.
So I agree with Hope that in previous conversations, when we have raised the progress flag, we talked about the only pole that we had as the town flagpole. I believe last year, the select board made a decision to add a flagpole in a different spot. Personally, I don't remember whether or not both were deemed town flagpoles or not, but we added a new flagpole in the front.
And we called it the town
But
flag.
Hope is correct,
and it was for commemorative flags.
commemorative
Remember,
flags.
that was the operative.
That was the
commemorative
word,
flags.
but she is correct that in all previous years, when I've been on the board, the other flagpole was
So we've addressed that.
discussed as the town flagpole.
All commemorative flags will be flown from the new flag.
That's what was voted on last year.
Underneath the United States flag. So the current flag that you have underneath the United States flag is only a very small.
That's what we had. That's
Hold on.
all we had, right?
Yeah, that's what we had.
That's what we had. We had to find
We
it.
didn't want, I think we did not want the American flag to be up there by itself, is that? I don't remember.
We had
We didn't really talk about it, to be
town
honest with
flag, then
Yeah.
we stuck it up.
It was not a huge decision to put the Manchester flag there.
You found it, right? You had it?
Yep, yep.
Pull it out of the drawer.
So my question is, so the United States flag will remain, and when the flags are at half staff, which they are currently, there's not room other than for your very small flag that you have. The flagpole that you've installed does not permit room for a normal sized flag to be flown under the United States flag. So what happens in the,
We're talking about flag protocols at future meeting. If we put that on our.
So is our new flagpole shorter?
No, it's the same height as the other flagpole.
it has a mechanism in the center of it, so it doesn't permit for another full-size flag to be flown at half.
So that's different than the.
Well, this one is beautiful. Now, take a look when you go out.
There's a
There's an
kind of
uplighting.
there's an uplight, and the uplight interferes with the.
Okay. I didn't understand the logistics.
Yeah, with the,
The other one had an uplighting and it got beat up with the halyard and broke. And rather than replace it, which cost a lot of money, they've got a couple of spotlights and a couple of other spots that
Got it.
but
illuminate.
that's the other.
That's the other one.
That's somebody else's problem.
But there was a similar structure on that.
Yeah, it's quite taking when you go outside today. Take a look at it.
I've been there, I just didn't understand
Never-
what the
yeah.
conversation
We
was.
need, Yeah.
So,
so,
So I think the question is, if we have, how, first of all, my question is, how much longer is the flag going to be at half-staff? Based on,
I don't know that. Okay.
this is something that we need to discuss in the flag discussion, because it's half staff, on the decision of a town employee to commemorate the death, the memory of a recently deceased town employee.
I thought it was for my dog.
Okay.
Maybe it was for your dogs, I don't know, I'm really sorry about your dog.
thank you. So we have an issue that we don't know why the flag is at half-staff.
Oh, we do,
Okay,
it was somebody's decision.
okay. Got
Anyhow.
it. So we have an
I don't
operational
know how much-
issue
I don't
here.
know how much time they said they're gonna fly. I just don't know that, I can find out.
But you
So
don't,
whose decision is it?
but you don't know what's gonna happen in June. Anything
Right.
could happen in June that would,
So,
Yeah.
so you either fly the commemorative flag at half and not have the American flag on it, or you remove the commemorative flag for those days that the American flag is at half. Those are two choices. So you choose one and you move forward.
Okay, so this is why we're having a follow-up meeting on the flag logistics, because the flag is at half-staff without the select board being part of that decision.
Yeah, typically you haven't been part of the
Okay.
lower
I thought it was for the
rising.
Pope, to be honest with you.
Most of the time it comes from a state directive or a federal directive.
Right, exactly.
you know, I don't know if other flagpoles that are commemorative flagpoles have an American flag always on it.
That's what I was gonna
Yes.
ask.
I think if it doesn't
I
have
don't-
a
I don't
flag,
think
there's no
they
sense
do.
putting a flag
They
down.
typically don't.
It's just that,
So,
so we have to make that determination at the
Yeah,
next
time,
meeting,
yeah.
but that's not a,
Okay, so how about, I move that the select board proclaim the month of June as LGBTQ plus month in the town of Manchester by the Sea and sign a proclamation to be presented on June 1st.
May 31st.
May
June fir-
31st, okay.
June 1st is a Sunday.
Okay. May 31st.
Could I ask for an edit to that? Could it be the LGBTQ plus Pride Month?
Pride. Yes.
That's the whole reason it's for.
okay.
Thank you. Thank you. And so when will that meeting be to determine what happens to the commemorative Pride flag if it should need to be?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Our next meeting.
2 weeks from tonight.
Which is still in May.
You check it.
So, motion on the table, who was seconded?
I second.
Okay.
Further discussion? Brian?
Yes.
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anne says yes. John?
Yes.
Just a point of clarification. So does the other older flagpole now belong to the American Legion?
It's part of the honor roll.
It's part of the honor roll. It is not the old flagpole. It is a totally different flagpole. Yeah, they took down and destroyed or trashed the old pole and put up their own pole.
Okay, so it's the American Legion owns it,
They have responsibility.
but they don't own the flag. The town owns the flag. I'm just trying to get clarification.
I'm
I
not sure
understand your
exactly where all
So-
of that sits. Do we own, for
So
example?
here's my confusion, which, when the select board voted to add the second flagpole, I don't remember, did we disposition that other flagpole to the American Legion, or did we retain it as a town flagpole and just said, we're adding a second flagpole for commemorative flags? I don't remember. We should go back to that meeting and understand what we voted on, which may have been something in addition to adding the second flagpole.
I think we added
I
the
don't
flagpole.
remember.
I'm pretty sure the wording was, this is the town flagpole, the new flagpole, and it was silent on the old flagpole.
That's my concern, is to answer Hope's question, I'm not sure we can answer Hope's question because we may not have made a statement about the other flagpole, which in previous years, we always talked about it as the town flagpole. So,
But I think we also decided the second flagpole would be for commemorative flags.
no, we did, but
Yeah.
So I think
that's,
that this is a moot point at this point.
it's not a
I
moot
think
point.
that this is a discussion for another time.
Yep.
It is-
We could go back to the recording of that discussion and.
I think we need to be just clear on what we voted on what we didn't vote on in that last meeting when we have the next discussion in 2 weeks. That's my recommendation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
What's next, number 6?
Okay. On the employee and volunteer of the year awards, I move that, we recognize Tiffany Marletta as.
A1.
Number 1, we're
No,
doing,
we're not going to, we're going to vote on Tiffany Marletta. Okay. We're not going to discuss.
You could just say you propose A, and then once you have a vote on that, then you can.
Okay.
Or just let that cat out of the bag.
I thought we had a consensus.
Yeah.
We do.
We do.
So
So we're gonna-
rather than try and remember who's A and who's 1,
but when was the actual announcement supposed to be?
Depends how you want to handle it. You want to do it as
We've already handled this.
We've already handled one, we still have another we haven't handled yet, so do we want to handle that one differently, I guess is the question.
Okay.
Make a motion on A.
I think it's done, but yeah, I'll make a motion on A.
Second.
Brian,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Anne says yes.
And John says yes.
Okay. John. Here.
Okay, now I will make a motion that the board support number 1
Right.
on
Volunteer.
on the volunteer as a volunteer
Second.
of the year.
John.
Yes.
And not, and I'm abstaining.
Yes.
Okay, understood.
Jeff,
Yes.
Brian.
Yes. Congratulations. Ed.
It's all a mystery.
Okay.
I think we should fly the information off the new flag. Kind of like electing a pope.
Okay, liaison updates.
So when would you like to give these presentations?
At our next meeting?
You're not here.
Yeah, not
That's
here.
okay.
Oh, but we can delay it until you're back.
Following.
I
I
might
think
not
it
be
should
here.
be back.
One of
Yes,
those-
we're in June.
Yeah.
God,
No,
don't say
we have
that.
the next meeting, but maybe the one after.
Yeah, the first meeting in June.
First meeting in June.
Okay.
Anyways, then I'm unrecognizable now. Maybe this is the forehead harbinger of what's going on. I'll live by myself.
Okay, the, liaison updates. None?
Let's see. We've heard enough from the DPW tonight. I will say, the Historic District Commission, this coming Thursday, a hearing on 22 Union. Well, frankly, it will be a public hearing, so that won't happen until the following month. So it's on the agenda, but it will just be,
To decide if there should be a formal public hearing.
which will happen. And
Right.
so there really won't be a whole lot that will happen in this month, but there will be a lot that will happen in June. They have sent out plans and, I think you're probably aware they would like to build a couple, a duplex there. And there'll be a lot of opinions on it, so.
Just, there was a meeting last week with members of the planning board, DBA, Historic District, Downtown Improvement, Select Board, the developer, get some of this information as they go forward. They have reached out to try to get some community input.
I believe that. They appeared before the district commission, I'll say in December. And we gave them certain feedback, and I know that they've been digesting that.
They come up with two options at this point. They're still.
So I understand. So I understand that one they've submitted along with their application, but I know they have a plan B. So we'll see. So that's what's happening, and so far as the seniors are concerned, they're happy about what happened last Monday and looking for the next steps.
Excuse me, regarding the Downtown Improvement Committee, they have been partnering really closely with the Chamber of Commerce on a presentation to help foster, to entice businesses to come to Manchester. So Steve Carhart worked real closely with Jim Brown, and they presented a presentation that they're working on collateral. They can actually go to a business and say, here's why you want to come to Manchester. They did a really nice job, and they're refining that. And they're trying to get some current business owners to be ambassadors to try and, bring some other businesses in. They've also been trying to reach out to some grassroots members of the communities who shared some ideas on Facebook. So the Downtown Improvement Committee is trying to reach out to them to make sure that we're all kind of working together on this. And I guess, Greg, is Mark working on a plan? A downtown. He had talked about some zoning stuff, and
But it starts with trying to get consensus on what the vision is for the downtown area. So the planning board approved moving forward with a consultant to help frame that up and to develop a plan for moving forward.
Okay, good, because Mark has been a good regular attendee at the Downtown Improvement Committee meetings, and I look to him to make sure people aren't duplicating effort and he's connecting the dots, so I want to put that out there. Then from a bike and ped standpoint, the Bike to Work Week is May 12th through 18th, and Bike to Work Day is May 16th, so I think they're working with Tiffany on promoting that through our various communications channels. Sorry, I have to ask again on the wayfinding signs in the public bathrooms, how we doing? I forgot to ask about that when we talked about downtown improvement.
Yeah, I know the signs have been ordered.
They've been ordered. I didn't ask.
I'm not sure when they're coming
on
in.
that last time.
And the public bathrooms, you said they were going to start being available Memorial Day weekend?
Yes.
So we should see signs in town hall, and I guess the question is that is it just seasonal? Like, what was the arrangement you made with the
So
businesses?
one business owner was willing to do it year round, and the other was seasonal.
Okay. And then the town hall signage is year round? Okay, great, looking forward to it. That was it.
We saw the planning board at town meeting, so there's nothing there, and our advisory should meet this week.
Parks and Rec, everything is gearing up for a busy season. Money's flowing as far as the beach tags for the month of April. I think they're very successful in that regard. It's talking 6 months, see how long it went.
I drove by yesterday, pickleball courts yesterday in the pouring rain, and there were 6 people out there. It was pouring, cats and dogs, pouring, and they were
I drove by around,
enjoying themselves.
I drove by around 6:15.
It's quiet.
You know, but when I've driven by and rolled out my window.
Yeah. No, I think the team did a very nice job, Greg.
It's very little, so.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what to report about the schools, because I don't have any information from Essex.
Let's see what's on the Facebook.
Oh, as we speak, live.
Yes, it's happening right now.
Consent agenda, meeting minutes, Eagle Scout recognition. Is there anybody who would like to represent the select board at Eagle Scout?
I will.
Thank you.
It's on my calendar.
The more the merrier.
When is it? What time is it?
It's Sunday, June. 1 second.
Oh, we have another week, 2 weeks to decide.
Yeah, I think it's in June.
I can make it, I'll go. No, it's on the agenda.
It's on Sunday, right?
That's your day of rest, isn't it?
Oh, excuse me, the 18th. It's this month, the 18th.
It's 8 days a week, I think.
So it's the weekend after Mother's Day.
Is that Mother's Day?
Like Mother's, the 11th, you might want to put that down on the calendar.
Yeah, I skipped over that entirely.
Anyway, you can thank me later.
So we need to get a proclamation signed.
I have it.
You have it, okay.
Need to vote on it for me?
That's pretty consent.
Yes.
Pretty motion. Move the select board approve the consent agenda item.
Second.
Discussion, John?
Yes.
Anne says yes, Kathy?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
Town administrators report.
Well, we just talked about the restrooms, so let's moving forward. We have the PSA, the purchase and sale agreement signed by all parties for the Mason building, so that's moving forward. We're working on the condo docs. We have a good draft of that, and we'll be working on just finalizing that document, which shouldn't take too terribly long. So that's moving forward, and again, we hope to close before the close of the fiscal year here. So is moving forward. The planning board's decision to not endorse the ANR on property on Spy Rock Hill, that is under appeal. And so we're working with town council to review the defense of that. And that'll be moving forward before a judge at some point. So that'll be updated as it moves along. Town meeting, logistically, it went very smoothly, I think. Good turnout, 440 some odd people at the highest number. All the preparation, I think, paid off. The electronic voting system worked well. No hiccups with that. So all in all, I thought a smooth operations, and my thanks to all of you for decisions you made and presentations to the public. So I think that was all for the good. And then lastly, I noted that I will be away that week of the 19th.
That's up a trip to France.
Yeah, no. Too good of an opportunity to pass up. Yeah. Yeah, free housing in Provence is a pretty good deal. So yeah, we'll take advantage of that.
Great.
Oh, that's what I have.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Popular acclaim.